So one intervention may be very successful with me if I try and do the same thing with Anita. Yeah, because why? Because we have different life world experiences. Yeah, that may not be so. Yeah, which is why we end up with this great teaching on the Kalamas Sutra that I think some of you have come across before, which I really love. You know, this comes again from an old Buddhist source. You know, when somebody said, I don't know how true these things are, but apparently somebody said to the Buddha, you know, like, what is truth? And so the statement goes, well, do not believe in what you have heard. Do not believe in traditions, because they have been handed down for many generations. Do not believe anything because it is rumoured and spoken of by many. Do not believe merely because the written statement of some old, secret sage is produced. Do not believe in conjectures. Do not believe in the authority of your teachers and elders. This can be tough. After observation and analysis, when it agrees with reason and is conducive to the benefit and good of one and all, then accept it and live up to it. That can be quite tough if we're told to, you know, to believe something really solid. But often, you know, people's difficulties occur when, you know, when we're told to behave in a particular kind of way, and actually it doesn't work.
Most of the clients we see, it's mainly because of most of these, or some of these reasons.
Yeah.
And as Buddha has said, also in the Quran it says exactly the same thing. Don't follow your elders, you have to understand, observe, and then vice versa, we behave right. And it's only when people are made to do things that this peace comes in.
Sorry. And just adding to that, our society, our culture, especially in the East, appreciates the herd mentality. Listen to your elders. This is the traditional way of doing it, and not standing out in a group, being part of a group. That's the way we are traditionally taught to think. It's egotistical to be very, to stand apart from others and have your own opinions.
The custodial culture we have, yes.
That realization comes with a bang when you start doing therapy also, because there's so many strong interjects. They're almost like their own voices. They have never questioned it, they have never processed it. It really makes sense, yes. We struggle with that over here.
This whole educational system here is so geared towards just taking in facts and information without ever questioning anything, right? Like learning analytical or critical skills is like something that is actually a bad thing. It's considered like this. When I was reading like that, do not believe in the authority of your teachers and elders, that would be like heresy. That's heresy here. Like, what do you mean? And it's like you can't question. It.
Yeah, it becomes a very punitive issue then.
And religiously it's the same, right?
Yes.
It's like because it stands.
It's the way it's been projected again because of the culture. Religiously it's exactly like this. But it's not been promoted that way. Because of the same mental thing, don't question.
But what I religiously it's very much like that, where you're supposed to question. Whereas our hierarchy and the cultural systems don't ask, is that so?
Good religious scholars now have started espousing yes, you
Yes,
should question.
everything.
Yeah.
But previously, they said do not question.
Because they couldn't control the masses, their minds.
That is how they were
reason.
projecting.
That's why
Read the Quran yourself, you don't read the scholar. It's-
One at a time, one at a time, you were just saying.
We have the history to prove it.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's just one perspective of those religious scholars. But basically, we have proper history to prove it. That religion basically is all about exploring. So, as a Muslim, it is kind of compulsory for everyone to get education till the done, continue to learn. It's kind of that's something I recently learned. I didn't know that. That it is kind of mandatory for a Muslim to keep on researching, and somehow it's not, that's not how it's practiced in our world. I don't think anywhere exactly, but yes.
I think there is no such thing as religion as per the Quran. A Muslim is somebody who is at peace. And anyone who is at peace is a Muslim. And a Muslim is someone who kind of knows, learns, observes, and for their own peace then help others. And so it's not a cultic religion, it's not a ritualistic religion, it's a very personal understanding and acknowledgement of the presence and also of the knowledge that one gains consistently and oneself and evolves through life. And each, what I had read at 13, what I read now, when I read the same thing, it has a very different connotations because of the experience which you spoke about just now.
So what I'm also getting from this, it's kind of like saying, trust yourself. And that's a scary thought. And I'm reading this and I'm also like, is that so? Right? Because I mean, there's something to be said about, like from an evolutionary perspective, right? And I mean, all of these things that are mentioned here played a role in the survival of a species. Right? And we've come to a point where it's simply not enough. And even though physically we may feel safe, psychologically and emotionally, these things aren't enough. Someone just telling us do this is not enough, and it's, it causes all kinds of things and threatens us as a human being. And so again, so I question, okay, but things that are passed down, because you said bad judgment, we talked about the bad judgment and the experience and the good judgment and the wisdom and all of that, and how sometimes that's meant to be passed down from generation to generation, and how it's not always bad, and that's something that is also here. It's like it's not always bad. It's about just it's like a social experiment almost an experiment. Take what you have, but don't take it at face value. Test it, what works for you. So it's really what it's doing is it's asking you to do research, right? And that, and I feel like, and that's what we're also telling our clients, right? Do research, and so a lot of times when I'm working with a client, they're this is how it's going to go. I oftentimes said, okay, so let's do a little bit of a social experiment.
Yeah.
And we play out, okay, all the hypotheses that could happen, the different things, and then they go ahead and sometimes do it, and then they come back with, actually, it didn't work out, or it didn't go the way I had anticipated, and my hypothesis didn't support it, and it's changed my life. Right? But it is about just research.
I think that's exactly it, isn't it? And it is around sometimes. I mean, what do children do when they're playing? They're researching life, aren't they? They're having a practice of actually what it's like doing something, and as a result of their doing something, they discover, oh, I'm not going to do that again. Yeah. Or, but in many ways it's a constant researching. It's a constant retesting of hypotheses. Yeah.
But it's also interesting that over the span of our life, because our resources change, it's like the laws also kind of change, right? With physics and chemistry and biology, they stay relatively constant, but the things that applied to a kid when they did their research then may not apply when we're adults.
Yeah.
So also kind of repeating those experiments at different parts of their lives, you know, because the resources are, again, they're changing.
Because of this research changing, a lot of the elders now they always say, see, they always fads in the West, and then you guys bring it here, eat this, don't eat this, and then see, that's bad, oh, don't eat that anymore, do this, do that. So for them it's like another concrete, you know, resource to tell everybody else, see, don't follow what the doctors say in the West, don't do this, don't do that.
Or like the keto diet you guys are talking
Eastern
about.
Yeah,
wisdom and the Western.
The keto diet is what we were discussing earlier, it's the same thing.
Well, I think one of the things that we can say around research is that it does get harnessed in a way, like particularly when it comes to things like market research. What is all of that about, generally?
Trends.
Trends and to sell
Perceptions.
stuff. Yeah, it's often around selling things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit like utilising stuff, you know, in order to promote a particular model, object, and things.
Actually, marketing produces clones. And they sort of market something, they actually brainwash the people of glamour or of class and so on. And suddenly you have these little clones carrying identical bags and purses and clothes, and just because it's a certain brand, the whole lot are wearing the same print, etc. So it's actually bringing out brainwashed clones who are not really thinking for themselves but doing, because then they will be accepted in a certain clone of society.
That's also because of, in a way, isn't there insecurity to want to belong? So if I do this, or, you know, I'll be a different status if I do this, or,
So then wisdom comes in and kind of changes certain things around. But this is marketing.
But I think I would be more prone to trust myself today than 30 years back because of my experiences. So 30 years back, maybe I was more prone to trust the judgment and experience of my elders
Yeah.
because I was feeling very inexperienced about certain things, about mothering or whatever. And today, I feel my experiences have made me more trusting of my own instincts. So the experience part is very important for my evolution. Trust my own instinct.
But now you're in the position of the elders.
Yeah, so I let my children be to learn from their experiences.
but I think Google has changed so much. Everybody
Yes.
thinks they can, you know,
Yeah.
actually experience somebody else's experience.
That's true.
Is that so?
Way you Google everything, you think you know it.
Yeah. So it's like,
There's a lot of misinformation
Oh,
there
yeah.
as well. So you have to be able to gauge between the two. Read
That
it all
comes
and
to-
then.
So I have a client coming to me who's very strictly sure that she has bipolar disorder. And she has Googled it and she studied books about it. And she is absolutely, and she wanted me to, you know, she's like, do you know how to treat bipolar disorder? Because that's exactly what I have. So, you know, I'm struggling with the Google part of her story. I mean, okay, all right, okay, you have bipolar. Let's see. So, I'm not really happy.
But that's a really, really good example of when we can talk about client factors. That's actually again what is around in research, you know. And there is something here around client factors, you know, where I think it's true that like clients now come into therapy in the years that I've been there. Clients come in a very different way. They come in with a lot more information, about mental health. Whether that's helpful or not is another thing. But you know, that idea I've been reading about, I think I'm borderline. or I think my partner's, narcissistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
And also what kind of therapy they want. They were like,
yeah,
I want CBT,
Yeah.
I want this.
yeah. So there is something around the kind of the client's expectation of therapy, of what they want and so on. But again, that's probably changed of late. But can you see how client factors becomes quite an important thing in therapy? The therapist factors is also really important in therapy, which is why part of what we're doing is doing therapist as researcher. We're doing it as self-research, so that we come to understand some of the therapist factors. There is some kind of research. Mick Cooper, who has a book, I think you've got a copy of it here, around research findings. We often find that when they've done a study of therapeutic outcome, and when they talk to the client and to the therapist about the experience of the therapy of a piece of work, the therapist believes X and the client believes Y happened. So therapists are much more likely, according to this particular piece of research, or several pieces of research, to believe that the work was much more beneficial than the client believed. So there's nothing wrong with that, but we're just noticing, that's an interesting phenomenon. So therapist factors and client factors impact on it.
When we're in this room, we all kind of bring in our successes or what we believe to be
Yeah.
our success.
Yeah.
We never know what the other side is
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
And so there's this
Yeah.
constant positivity of the work
Yeah.
that's being done.
Mm.
And while I was reading up, obviously, various books, I kind of felt I had each one of those issues. And, and also while studying medicine and so on, whatever I read, I felt I had it. I would pick up the phone. Do you think I have this? Fine. Now I'm a little more grounded when I read things, but when I was younger, I actually felt that I had all the diseases that I was reading. And likewise with therapies.
Well, we are not so classifiable, are we, as human beings? I think that's one of the difficulties. So a lot of the classifications are generalities, and which is why actually we can look at some of the diagnostics and think, that's me, crikey, maybe I am completely paranoid, or whatever. But what we begin to notice is that, is that so? If we come across a classification of known factors of a thing, is that all the person is? Or is there more? Which leads us quite nicely to an exercise that I think, I've done with you before, and actually I think it now becomes part of the training. But I'm going to ask you to do it in a different way. So if the classification is apple, what is apple? Just very quickly, let's have some shared observations of what an apple is. It's a fruit.
Fiber.
Fiber.
It's rich in iron.
Rich in iron.
Pleasant.
Juicy.
It's a very nice smell.
Nice
Pleasant
smell. Yeah.
It's a symbol in many ways with Adam and Eve and snow.
Okay.
and
Now we're going into something else. It's symbolic.
It's healthy.
Healthy. Yeah. Okay. Great. So we could come up with these kind of generalized factors of